Yes, it's finally the one you've all been waiting for in our 60th anniversary Doctor Who fan votes. It's the ones you voted for as the best Doctor Who stories. Yes, I know this is going to be a long one. You know it's going to be a long one. It may take a few recording sessions to get done so that certain other halves of myself and Mr. Jon Arnold don't murder us in our sleep for keeping them up too late. Uh, so why don't you just make a nice cup of tea or your favourite thing and sit down and we'll discuss the magic of Doctor Who together. There, with my best Terry Wogan. There we go for the 60 years
One
of
of
Doctor
the
Who.
great. That's the best intro you've done yet. You're getting hung at it.
Um, Hello and welcome to another edition of the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. Poll results from our fans. This is me, Michael S. Collins, here with my colleague Mr. Jon Arnold.
Hello.
And remember, you can always comment on what the fans thought down below. We love to hear what you think. And always remember, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Pretty much everything from the Matt Smith, Capaldi, and Whittaker eras. So
Outrageous.
I'm afraid we don't get to talk about Mummies or Heaven Sent or Vincent or Day of the Doctor or Oxygen. I love Oxygen. Uh,
Right.
and there are some interesting omissions from earlier. There's no Web of Fear, no Human Nature, no Inferno, no 10th Planet, no Invasion of the Dinosaurs, sadly. Uh, no Survival, no Talons, well, that was to be suspected given recent. No Robots of Death, no Kinda, no Dalek. Uh, so what they left in must be pure gold.
That's Repelden's number one. I'm coming up to Glasgow. And then sorry, I'm not coming to Glasgow. I'm going around the home of every voter and taking them out one by one.
Technically, my view on Doctor Who stories is that all of them are great. Some of them are better than others, but all of them are great, except
Yes.
Underworld. But we asked everyone to vote for their favourite stories, and this was so varied that we had, I mean, there are what 400 Doctor Who stories now,
Oh, 300, I think.
300,
300.
and there were 70 that were voted for. So there was quite a lot of people who have lots of stories they love which don't quite make the list just because so many options were there. You think of some of the great stories that are missing, like everything from the Capaldi era. Uh,
Outrageous. Where is my
yes.
story I wrote in there? Where's World Echo
Um,
Time?
there's no invasion of the dinosaurs, no demons, no Silurians.
Ah,
I
no,
mean,
the demons is worth it just for the scenes in the pub in Devil's End alone.
no
And
Kinda, no Web of Fear. What did they vote for? All
wheel
right.
turn.
Oh, yes, I
I
have it in
think
front of
you
me.
say with
It
democracy,
just
wheel turn.
it's great. The show is that if you look at the lists of nominated stories, pretty much all of them, you could go, yep, that could have made to the top 20 easily. And it was so competitive that 20th place actually has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 way tie.
Oh,
so and the 20th place 7 way tie is between Terror of the Zygons,
oh, I'd like that. I like that.
Father's Day,
Ooh,
perennial YouTube favorite, The Gunfighters, Hartnell Classic Historical Crusade,
nice.
Power of the Daleks, story which I will be keeping spoiler free for Marco Beaver's state because he's not seen it yet. Earthshock and the greatest Doctor Who story of all time, the Moon Base.
I think that the moon bases in 20th place prove democracy doesn't work, doesn't it? We need a benevolent Glaswegian grumpy dictator.
The moon base in joint 20th place shows how one person could get a spot on the very bottom of this ladder because of how many different stories there were.
Are you saying you fixed the poll? Or are you saying that this would reflect your one-man campaign for the moon base to be given its justified status?
I mean, I can write a lot about the moon base. I've been doing it for nearly 30 years now.
You persuaded me, right? And it has one of the great animations of the range as well. Beautifully done.
I mean, to be quick about Earthshock, because I don't want to spoil it for Marco, here's my quick spoiler-free review. Marco, go watch Earthshock.
It depends on the shock a lot. It's
And-
really well directed.
Yes, Peter Grimway's direction is excellent. It's got some wonderful casting, but we cannot speak about it without spoiling it for you. So go watch it. Power of the Daleks is the one I saw most recently in my marathon, and the Daleks are wonderful in it. They're so evil.
It's so good. It's yeah, David Whittaker has this conception of the Daleks, which is quite different to Terry Nation, which is Terry Nation has them more as this kind of a blunt instrument who'll do whatever the story wants. Because if you look at the Hartnell stories, there's almost no cohesion to the Daleks in that at all. They are just, what do I need the villains to do in this story? The Daleks will do it. There's no consistent motivation between any of it. There's no linking story, no nothing. But funny enough, I was reading this week the novelization of the picture book novelization of the Daleks, which I had for Christmas and just got around to. And you can see David Whittaker's idea of them, that the Daleks, they're smart, they're clever, they're not a blunt force. They will do what it takes to win. And Power of Daleks does that so well. I absolutely love it. For the way it doesn't. The Daleks aren't scary because they can blast the hell out of everything, as part of this time. They're scary because they're clever. They're equal and opposite to the Doctor. And that's what makes them work. You've got the familiarity of the Daleks, because you've got still two fairly new companions and a new Doctor. And how do you want to know you're watching the same show? There's the Daleks to ease them in.
Is how intelligent they are as characters in it, because they're forever using fear of the unknown to sideline threats to them. Like they kill off Resno early on. Watching it, the reason they kill off Resno is because that Dalek quickly works out that he is a threat to them, so it eliminates him. The Doctor,
it's all perfectly in tune with the Dalek mentality, that isn't it? Using the fear of the unknown, which is their mentality.
Yes,
and they're expanding it to everyone else. They're making people like them.
I mean, they try and sideline the Doctor by acting contrary to his every warning about them. And then as soon as Lesterson twigs, which is far earlier in the drama than people think, they start working with Janeway to make it look as if Lesterson's off his rocker. Wonderful story about flawed characters, and the best thing about it is the Daleks are characters in their own right, as much as Bernard Archer or the Doctor or anyone in it.
I love that it's made this list.
I will point out the elephant in the room. It's got white actors playing ethnic roles, and they would not do that in 2020. And they shouldn't.
I should point out there's a very good podcast. Don't know if it's been released publicly yet, but it's on Toby Haydock's subscriber channel. but it's just Doctor Who and Race where he talks about this, where he talks about this, going through the spotlight for that era, and how very, very few actors of color that there are out there. But so yeah, I think
Fortunately, there was a
I
bar.
yeah. Make the point that I think there is an institutional racism there, which helps, but I don't think it's there on part of the makers of the show. You know, for example, they employ Warriors and they've got a lot of in Marco Polo, a lot of the ethnic. They fill a lot of the roles with ethnic actors.
I mean,
Even if they're not quite the correct ethnicity, I think, but the intention is there. And you know, this is your Doctor Who where I believe until the Smugglers, none of these historicals, the pure historicals, are set in British history. They're set abroad. They're set in foreign history. So it's again, it's educational. The intentions are good, even if, you know, to a modern eyes, quite rightly, the execution is deeply flawed because of the flaws of the side, the way TV was made
yes.
at the time.
I mean, if you can look past those flaws, and that may be a big if for some people, and fair enough,
Absolutely.
but the characters themselves are treated with great dignity. They're, you know, Saladin is not a great sort of other. He is the intelligent, war-weary commander from history.
Absolutely. If
And
anything, he's more noble than either of the characters, you know,
yes,
the English characters, you know, he's
yes,
certainly more sympathetic than Richard or even Joanna or the Earl of Leicester, because they're looking to be quite manipulative. They're looking to play power games. They're not likable characters at all, brilliantly played as they are.
the crusade is that whichever side you claim to be on, there's no wrong or right if you're going to be a religious bigot, which is a worthwhile lesson. And it's really good in that because Jean Marsh is terrifying, but she's terrifying because they bring her princess in as this amiable ally who you get on with and you like. And once you're used to her being this, she reveals her bigoted side, and it's terrifying because she goes from this sweet, likable person to this horrific person from history.
Oh,
That's
scenes with Ian Glover. Oh,
yes,
crackle. You know, it's two actors being given great material,
yes.
great dialogue. You know, not great dialogue as in the smart, you know, quippy dialogue and screwball stuff. Just, I think it's blank verse a lot of this dialogue, and it's just so gorgeously delivered. And the anger in that performance as Joanna, the frustration there, you can see the pent up. Oh,
I mean,
glorious,
obviously
wonderful.
Julian Glover and Jean Marsh, fantastic actors.
Oh,
Uh, but oh, it's such a powerful story. The 60s wasn't afraid on difficult things that you wouldn't expect it to. And I'm glad it did, although I'm also glad it doesn't do it all the time.
absolutely.
The Terror of the Zygons, Tom Baker classic, wonderful monster, great country to set a story in, even if they film it somewhere else. Uh, that one bit that I'm shocked they got away with, where the Zygon Harry stalks
With the pitchfork.
that in the barn. I mean,
Yeah.
that's nerving as an adult, let alone.
How that got for away to broadcast, I don't know. Again, it's see, I don't. The Hinchcliffe Holmes era isn't particularly my favorite era. Again, I think it's really, really beautifully produced. So it's aged better than a lot of stuff in terms of the way it looks on screen. But a lot of it is quite kind of repetitive of which horror movie are they ripping off? You know, how are they going to shock you this week? It's kind of repetitive. There's not much depth to the stories, but they're brilliant. And again, you can watch Tom and Liz forever. But that one I've always liked again because I think as we said on an earlier episode, the Zygons are such a brilliant idea for a monster, and I think the reason it always got done down was for the very typical kind of fan cringe reasons of,
Yes.
oh my god, the Scarrison's terrible.
I mean,
Yeah, get over it.
thing about Terror of Zygons is that Eddie Robson wrote a takedown of the story because he wasn't a fan when he wrote the book on the classic series. And he goes into great detail about how what doesn't make sense and how it doesn't make sense. And I read this and thought, actually, every point he makes here is correct, but I still love this story.
Yeah, it's Douglas Camfield directing. It is you know you're going to get the maximum out of the scripts he's been given.
An Eccleston classic, which I haven't. Father's Day is one I have not seen since I became a father.
I can understand it. It's always been one of Carolyn's favourites from that season. And speaking as a fan who was there, through the 90s, seeing Paul Cornell come through, just like you saw Rob Sheehan, you saw Mark Gatiss, even Russell Diaz come through. It's one of us, and they're not writing a one of those. There's the Daleks versus Sidemen, all the big toys together story. It's what Paul does really well as a writer. It's an emotional story through the lens of science fiction. It's a very human way for Rose to act. If I can time travel, what would I want to do? I can go back and save my dad. I can meet my dad. I think it's really strengthens Rose so well. And as I say, it's one of Carolyn. It remains one of Carolyn's favorite episodes from the whole post 2005 era. Again, a great performance, not quite what you'd expect.
Friendlier performance in the type he tends to give. He's usually in an antagonistic role on TV. Noughts and Crosses, for example.
Yes, absolutely.
But he works so well, Billy Piper, and that episode would not have the emotional kick it had. Apparently, people still go up to Paul Cornell saying, "Damn you! You made me cry watching Doctor Who," and
Yes,
that wouldn't happen if you didn't have the on-screen chemistry between Piper and Dingwell.
John Dingwall, yes.
Wax lyrically about the gunfighters from here till eternity.
In the past.
Yes, it never gets old. I know that Doctor Who fandom used to think it was rubbish, but that's because they were wrong. it's, it's just every time I watch it, I find new bits I didn't see before, and I appreciate it all the more.
You give William Hartnell comic material, and my God, the guy has such fun with it, doesn't he? Mr. Werp.
Yes.
What's it, the way the way he's constantly being given, people keep giving me guns.
Yes.
You just, I don't know.
The
Dodo singing in,
Oh, it's Dodo's finest ever. Her in total quality. Every interaction that William Hartnell has with Anthony Jacobs' top quality in the show. It's two characters who are at best when they're using Columbo's that slight obfuscation against their opponents, finding that their usual bag of tricks doesn't work because the other person's so used to them, and each of them getting increasingly more frustrated with the other as the episodes go by.
And the one minor flaw I have with it, I think the turn at the end, and it's entirely deliberate because it's there in the Mythmaker as well, which is essentially part one, and then this is Donald Cotton with the Mythmakers. He does Greek myth. With this one, it's modern myths. It's the myths of the Old West. The way I believe Wyatt Earp was around when the original westerns were being made, so he was able to influence the way the story was being told. The only thing I think they've been playing it so broadly for 3.5 episodes. I don't quite think that turn in the last half where they go back to the film gunfight section works, because that is so grim.
Yes.
It could work because I think the contrast needs to be there, but it's just almost too sharp for me.
I mean, I would disagree slightly in that it's not the final episode. It's the moment that Johnny Ringo appears. Slowly cuts all the comedy out as he interacts with every character and bumps up with old David Graham. He's playing the whole thing so straight, and it's an inversion of the kind of role that Lawrence Payne played at the time, which makes it so interesting.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love it, and the thing I love most from the most recent one, apart from everything I always mention, is the fact that in the middle of all this, the story of revenge and how it's going to keep going till people die because they will not back down. It is too much. Is in the middle of this, one of those Clanton boys convinced that if only they sent a strongly worded letter to the local authorities. Oh, I love that.
That's gorgeous.
Is about Cybermen on a base in the moon, for it is the moon base.
Oh, I never got into it. So I think I should let you do most of the talking on this one, because you are the greatest advocate for the moon base there has ever been. And
Um,
so as a question,
we can never.
why is the moon base the greatest Doctor Who story ever told?
Well, I mean, it's a bit like the stories that appeal to you are the ones that are embedded on your DNA from early childhood. The moon base is one of the first stories I got to exist. You BBC, or the first ones that I got to see on a VHS. My dad bought me Cybermen in the early years, which I used to play over and over again when I was 8. Um, and from those moments, I can still remember being so terrified by the idea that Cybermen were hiding in the base. I ran through to my bedroom and wouldn't come back out until Dad convinced me to come and watch the rest. Otherwise, fear of what I thought was happening would be worse than knowing how they saved the day. And I mean, it would not be an exaggeration to say that this is the story that made me a fan. Like, just going back to it time and again. And as an adult, it's interesting to go back to it because, and I know what you're about to say, the science is actually more timely now than it was in the 60s. Mention the tea tray, you're going to mention the tea tray.
I wasn't, as if it's a space tea tray. Of course, they could say
When I was a teenager, I came up with many online lessons about how it was the gravitron, etc. And it's actually really clever plot. And as an adult, I'm aware that the gravitron's actually shut off in that scene. And that it's just a daft bit of hokum. And if you're going to judge your view of of any story on one daft bit of hokum, then you're not going to have much to enjoy in Doctor Who.
very true. No,
But
I've been turned around on the moon base, but I did always love the Target novelization as a kid, because I originally had the reprint, the red spine with the two sidemen on the front, pointing away into the distance. And I love that because it had that sidemen prelude to it, the origin of sidemen, and the Phantom Piper stuff, the way they creep around the base. It's almost a bit of a ghost story, isn't it?
yes, I
When
mean, I until a Capaldi story that we love, which is sadly not in this list, I think they had the best idea of conversion, where you've got all these people who are clearly they've got their friends right around them, but they're no longer human.
Yes. convert them to medical bait. Brilliant little idea, that.
And what I find interesting is that even at the end of the story, Hobson is optimistic that they can reverse this process. He still thinks he can save his doctor, and the other fallen people, which always interested me. There's unexpected optimism at the end of the story, but then it comes from Hobson, who is by far the best of the base under siege leaders.
In that he's
He
actually competent, I think.
he has a natural skepticism towards the uncanny, but he takes evidence on board as he gets it. He will change as things become apparent, and he pretty much almost all of the cast that we see in episode 2 that we've got is still there in episode 4 because their leader has managed to protect them. Standing in harm's way at points.
Yes, again, it's the the Mad Mitch was a phrase they used in books back then. He would take, it's about the Brigadier Arnold usually. He would take the bullet for his men.
And
that's what yeah. Well, you can't imagine that, Cutler, say, would, Clent would do that.
And there's a great bit early on where obviously he's a bit crabby in the first half of the story, shall we say. There's a line from, I believe it's Benoit, where the great Andre Mann, where he refers to the fact that Hobson hasn't taken his last 2 sleep periods because he's been so concerned about his sick crew. That's great characterization.
Just in one line, lovely. Yes.
And his ad lib about how he bets that the guy down on Earth will get a knighthood, which is an ad lib pipe.
A perfect little bit of cynicism, I think. Totally.
No, I love the fact that Polly gets to be proactive. I love the moon setting, which is it's very claustrophobic because it has to be.
Yes.
Humans need oxygen. Men do not need oxygen, and that's the great disconnect between the two, and it leads to so many great scenes in my imagination and in the recon and animation. And apparently they were amazing at the time, but we've lost episode 3.
Yeah, with that chase on the moon, great stuff. That came across so well in the book. Just the tension there, gorgeous.
Oh, I mean, I've seen reports from the time lauding how well those scenes were made, and it's some of the moon scenes which meant that Maurice Barry, the director, had already been told by the BBC that he was wanted for a sequel before had even been shown on TV.
Oh.
No, I unashamedly love the moon base. Like, I've seen the most of any Doctor Who story, and anytime I go back to it, I go, have I seen it too much? No, I love this. It's just
you can never see it too many times.
No, it's just
ever.
It is Doctor Who, and it brought me into Doctor Who.
A man who's tired of the moon base is tired of life.
Yes. And it introduced me to Gaia Theory and Lovelock, so I'm on the Kit Bedler, I say. Number 19. Blink.
I'm mildly surprised it is that low. Again, as you said before, it's a great piece of horror disguised as Doctor Who, but it's one in which the only people who die do so of natural causes. Yes. It's really clever. Stephen Moffat is so good at scaring you without using death. That's how brilliant those 4 episodes of his are. First the stories he writes under Russell T Davies, including the 2-parter, I should say, so 5 episodes. It's again, I mean, I don't tend to put it in my personal top 10, top 20, whatever. for no good reason apart from the fact that I like it, but I didn't quite love it like anyone else did. But again, the ideas are so smart. I know it's reusing one of his Doctor Who annual stories, What I Did on My Holidays, by Sally Sparrow. But again, every aspect of this, this is, you can tell that it's at the peak of the Russell T Davies era. Everything's singing. The casting, you've got Carrie Mulligan before she goes out and becomes a huge star. You've got is it who directs? Is it Grim Harper? I can't remember.
No, it's Hetty McDaniel.
Hetty McDaniel again. The tension all the way through it as well. Some of those scenes are filmed on Newport streets that I know really well, and unlike certain other stories, it never takes me out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the gags are all played well. The conceit of the Easter eggs on the videos. I mean, that dates it these days. How many? I mean, DVDs themselves are almost an obsolete concept coming out, apart from our Doctor Who stuff almost. But it's such a clever story, so well told. And again, I think we said this on the Monsters episode. It's based on a primal fear. It's based on, what was that out the corner of your eye? Or the statues game where people are after you and you can't move. It's just, again, taking a simple idea and running with it till it terrifies you. It's horror for kids and it's brilliantly done.
Oh, yeah, better than that. It's a wonderful way of doing a Doctor Light and creating a legacy of horror that still permeates the show.
Totally. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go and rewatch it at some point.
Oh, number 18. Set yourself to praise. It's the Happiness Patrol.
Oh, that this is in the top 20 absolutely delights me. I know some people have pulled it down in the past because it's artificial. I'm sorry, it is part of the single greatest season of Doctor Who there ever has been, and probably in my lifetime ever will be, with the possible exception of the Eccleston year. There is nothing I don't like about this story. You've got it's that Andrew Cartmel wanted to tear down the government, didn't he, when he got the script editor job? And this is the most obvious one here because Sheila, oh god, no, I've forgotten her surname. Hancock. Sheila Hancock's Helena is one of the great performances. I know she's doing Margaret Thatcher. She's doing Margaret Thatcher in a big red wig. It's great. And again, a villain with pathos, because you see how she cares for Fifi, for her pet, even though her pet is a vicious, snarling animal.
Yes.
And obviously, beyond that, the character actors you've got in here. Harold Innocent, my God. Yeah. You have one of the great Doctor Who villains, the Candyman. I adore the Candyman. The fondant surprise, the way he answers the telephone, for goodness sake.
It's grumpiness.
It's when he cannot stand everyone. He is the superior man. It's great. Oh,
him and Gilbert are one of the best, dare I say it, Holmesian double acts. Robert Holmes didn't even write them.
Yes. And I think someone, I can't remember who pointed out, it's something like, if this is an analogy of the Tory party, or if Happiness Pro was an analogy of the Tory party, says something like it's Dennis Thatcher running away with Douglas Hurd at the end. It's brilliant.
If it's an analogy of the Tory party to the nth degree, does that make Fifi Norman Tebbit? I can retire now. I've done.
That's it. You won this podcast. That is the best thing that's going to be said on here. Oh, absolutely. But again, it's such a lovely, simple idea. You know, the idea that everyone has to be happy. It's a simple parallel for the authoritarian regime, and it's I know the analogy is essentially late 80s Britain, but it's held out because it's so much more than that. It's such more of a universal
Yes.
a universal analogy than just a straight tear down the government, kids. And it's unfortunately it's still relevant today.
But it has two of my favourite scenes of all Doctor Who in it. One with Ace and the Candy Man and the Doctor and the flames and the villainous speaks is grumpily forced to go. I am forced, however reluctantly, to bow to your logic.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a great. It shows up all the time in these Channel 5 Let's Mock Old TV things. But
But you can chuck anything out of context and it will not, it'll look bad. In context, it's great.
Channel 5's most recent When TV Goes Wrong has a bit of Doctor Who to show how bad it was at effects and trying to scare kids. You know what story it was?
Was it the Happiness Patrol?
No, The Seeds of Doom. You can't win anyone if they don't want to be won.
Some of the stuff in that is not going to be supporting the case of it being bad in the slightest.
But no, but the other bit that you'd probably mention it if I hadn't got there first here. But one of my favourite moments in all of Doctor Who is the Doctor going up to the two snipers and getting them to throw their guns away through words alone. It's just
in my life. You're getting that running through the scene. You get that in Remembrance with where he talks the Dalek down. He talks the Dalek to that, and then you get this. He talks the snipers just in. He doesn't. It's non-violent resistance, and he really, it's the power of ideas to combat authoritarianism. The idea of rebellion in the head.
He finds the humanity in people who think they've lost it. That's his recurring theme.
At the end with Helen A.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's such good. I want to go and watch it again now.
I will be honest. It may be stagey in the production, but that didn't matter a toss to me when I was 8 when I first saw it.
Absolutely, and the pink TARDIS as well.
We've not even mentioned Silas P. Such a wonderful body of that government who immediately becomes a victim of the system he set up. It's such a wonderful setup.
So many beautiful little touches. Oh, yeah. And I think I think the one time I had a meal with Andrew Cartmel, I said because he notoriously gave his writers, I think it was Halo Jones, about Halo Jones, 2000 AD was the thing they were aiming for. And I said to this is probably the most 2000 AD story you did.
Yes,
because it's the analogy for science fiction analogy for today, and it's going big and funny, a bit like Paradise Test but refined. And Graham Curry was the least inclined to that kind of thing.
I also find it an interesting sort of grim background that John Normington has gone round trying to do a census by asking people their names on the street, and at the end of this, he's come up with a list of 1,000 missing people.
It's just how long did it take him to do this?
Yes. I don't want to set you to get too excited for the future, John, but Happiness Patrol is only the fifth highest McCoy on this list.
Outrageous. Oh, I'm going to enjoy some talking here.
Number 17. It's a classic from the Tom Baker era, which scared me as a child, though not maybe for the reasons people think. But it never scared my sister, who points out that in episode 4, the whole thing falls apart. And she can never, her suspension of disbelief just dies as a result. It is fan classic Pyramids of Mars.
She's not wrong. But that first 3.5 episodes are so well made.
Yes.
It's again, it's just pure horror. It's Robert Holmes's scare the buggers to death mentality in full. No, the Target book. I read the Target book this long before I saw the video. Again, it was one of the first. I think it's probably the third or fourth VHS I got. But the idea of Sutek, this all-powerful alien, it terrified me in the book. And then it's got Gabriel Wolf doing it on screen, and it's an equally terrifying presence. It's that equal and opposite to Tom Baker, particularly to episode 3 where Tom Baker goes to distract him, and he just beats the Doctor in a heartbeat.
Yes, and that's the thing. When it got repeated in '94, all of my older family remembered watching it at the time. Well, except Uncle Robert, of course, who would have been about 5 months old at most when it was shown. But my mum and all her sisters remembered it, and the Bob and Dad, and they were all like, "Oh, that one's going to be too scary for Michael, the mummies," and I was fine with the mummies. It was Gabriel Wolf's voice of Sutek that scared the bejesus out of me. And when Sutek gets his horsey face, I had nightmares of the horsey face.
And one of the great moves they had with the Impossible Planet, the same, they got Gabriel Wolf back to do the voice, and he is again just the calm, isn't it? It's just that he's not bothered. He doesn't get angry. He gets angry when he gets frustrated. His plans get frustrated, and that's it. That's when he's really scary, because he doesn't go up that high that often. It's just
he's like the sadly recently deceased and much loved Terrence Hardy man. Just has one of these voices that chills you, even if they're playing amiable roles.
Oh God, yeah. Just it's like, must say, it's not deep. It's not particularly got much to say about the world. But as an adventure story, again, as a horror, I don't even think it's a kid's horror. I think it's an outright horror at times. It's a kid show in the last episode, maybe. I'll give it that. It's so good. It's the Ernie Clements gets crushed. It's like, oh, what the hell?
Yes.
But of course, it's got Michael bloody Sheridan, and how good is he?
He's so happy to get in the TARDIS. Both the character and Michael Sheridan himself was so delighted that he was one of the rare characters in Doctor Who that got to be in the TARDIS.
Oh yeah, and that he plays. You don't often get such that pure sense of wonder, particularly from. So I think he's middle-aged at this point, obviously, and he just sells that so well. It's almost like the first time anyone's seen it.
And he and Bernard Archer both work so well in their roles of siblings. And I'm just thinking to myself, is there anyone in the world, casting-wise, but Paddy Russell, who would have thought that those two would work as siblings? They shouldn't, but no, you're won over by them.
But you can believe, and even though one of them is essentially a zombie for the entire thing, and you can sell she sells that the longing for his brother to come back to him so well. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
Oh, but I mean, yes, this is another of the 4 stories directed by everyone's favourite director, Paddy Russell. And the things you're going to get from Paddy Russell are interesting camera shots, which we have, especially with them hiding in the bushes and the mummies looming overhead, or the sort of the way they focus the point of view of Sutek as he takes down the doctor, or even the basic how they get that time tunnel effect to work on a BBC budget in '75. But the other thing you'll get from a Paddy Russell,
the effect with the flaming footsteps.
Yes.
Which I believe they did it by filming it in reverse.
Yes.
It's astounding for 75.
I mean, the other thing you'll get from Paddy Russell being in charge of direction is that she was one of the best in Doctor Who history at casting a story. Pyramids of Mars' cast is just top to bottom amazing.
Yeah.
Gabriel Wolfe, Michael Sheard, Bernard Archer, Peter Copley.
Obviously got
Mr. Tovey.
Yes.
Yeah. Roberto Tovey's dad.
Yes. Head's gone now. But yeah, it's again, she casts. There's not a deaf casting choice, and they're all ambitious cast as well. You go back to having Eric Thompson in the Mask, for goodness sake.
And the interesting thing is, I think it's possible she also saved us from having to talk about an elephant in the room, because in episode 1, the villain of the piece is a stereotype from Hammer films, which would be a bit dubious. The reason it's not as dubious is because she cast an English actor and got him to play it as an English role. So instead of it being an Egyptian stereotype, it's an English villain playing to Egyptian ideas. So it's not anywhere near as dodgy as it could have been.
Oh,
and that strikes me as a director sympathetic to the limitations of the period she was working in and trying not to necessarily offend folk.
Yeah, and others didn't quite think that through, as we won't actually mention on this top 20, I believe, from the hints you dropped.
There is no Talons of Wen Chiang on this top 20.
Yeah, falling, and I think that's fallen away a bit in the recent DWM poll too. So,
but no, I mean, the build up to that episode 1 cliffhanger and I bring Sutek's Gift of Death to all. That's just, that lives for you. That is a wonderful bit of horror.
Yeah, that's it. We can say it does fall apart a little in that last episode. Yes. It's the kids. Robert Holmes has got a kids' encyclopedia of puzzles by him. It's like, how do I? I've got 15 minutes to fill here. Right, hang on.
Although I think next time I watch it, which probably for the marathon at some point in the next century, I am going to have to sit down and work out how that logic puzzle works. It's probably all there on the screen, but it always runs me by when I've watched it.
The Guardians one.
Yes.
I'll explain it at some point. Not now, though.
Yes. But number 16. We might as well keep talking about Paddy Russell because it's Horror of Fang Rock.
Hey! Again, I think it just gets undervalued because it comes straight off the back of the Hinchcliffe Holmes era, and it comes off the back of what was for years a monumental fan favourite in Talons.
Yes.
But again, this is a story that was written very quickly when what would become State of Decay fell through, and you wouldn't know it. because it's, again, if you want a writer to get something at short notice, you need someone who's got such a solid grasp of story structure. You get Uncle Terry in. Uncle Terry, here you go. You've got limited sets, and he just comes up with something quite tight, quite perfect. And again, as we said on the cliffhangers episode, the cliffhangers are perfect because every one of them changes the story.
Yeah,
It's just such a well constructed story. It's almost indistinguishable from the era that came before it. It's that good.
I love the DVD commentary that's got Turner Dix talking about how he wrote the story. Because you get towards the end of episode 1, and he says that one of the great lessons he learned as a scriptwriter, you'll now see in action. If you get stuck in your script, bring more characters in, then you can bump them off.
And he does that to every single
Yes.
one of them.
They're such a great cast of characters. I I love Skin Sale, the man who knows he's flawed and wants to be good, but he just he cannot help give in to his base instinct, and every time he does, he dooms someone. And it's a very good performance too, because the character's so flawed that you need a special actor to make it sympathetic.
Absolutely. And again, Paddy Russell's casting is quite good, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, Colin Douglas is one of the, you know, the great finds for people who like archive TV, because you will see him in a lot of talking pictures things, and he's always great value. And that went right up to GBH in 1991, the Michael Palin Robert Lindsay drama about Liverpool, where Colin Douglas plays an old trade unionist in one of his last roles before his death, and he's great. So he would bring quality wherever he attended the TV or film, and despite that, someone, quite possibly a producer, I'm led to believe, didn't think he was good enough to play the dual role of Ribbon the Lighthouse Keeper and the Rutan in Ribbon form. But our great hero, Miss Russell, put her foot down, as she was wont to do. So they brought him in to do an audition, and they're like, "Ah, he's doing well." And then he asked to do the Rutan smile, and he gave the one we see on TV, and he scared the absolute bejesus out of everyone in the room.
Just that slow.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Doesn't hit the eye. Oh, it's gorgeous. Yes.
There's an interview quote from Patty Russell many years later where she said she always knew he'd be good in the role. She didn't realise he'd be that good.
And again, I think it's one of the last times Tom is completely under control, because he sells the atmosphere of the story. He knows what he's doing. He knows, this later stories, his Doctor isn't challenged by a lot of the villains in the later part of his era. But here it's the Doctor's scared, you're terrified, because he's the reassuring presence. He knows what he has to do to sell a horror story to kids. And again, what you see so quickly as well, how good Louise Jameson is, because she's not familiar with the terminology and the niceties of the era, but she learns quickly. Is it on DVD that Tom talks about the way she uses the spade? I think the shovel.
Yeah, the shovel. Yes.
Yeah, because she doesn't use it, go straight and use it as a lesser actress or actor might. She goes in and she uses it in a kind of naive way natural. And she when she talk about the boiler pressure, she's boiler pressure. Again, brilliant. It's a perfect example of the conception of Leela, where she's naive about certain things, but she is instinctively smart.
I mean, I am aware that at that point in time, her and Tom Baker's relationship was at its worst, but it doesn't show on screen. Their
No,
chemistry on screen is wonderful.
he's so professional at that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of horror at Fine Rock. I think that, like a fine wine, it's got better with age.
Absolutely.
Uh, but yes, it's definitely one that holds up a bit well for me. And fandom, given it kicked, kicked Talon's part here. uh, number 15. Oh, it's a trip down to John Pertwee and Matt Hulk. It's one that I know both of us love because it is, in fact, the Sea Devils.
Again, it's one of the great images of Doctor Who is the Sea Devil coming out of the water, isn't it? Just that rising out of the water. And again, from my wife is slightly older. She can remember it on first transmission, and it remains one of her favourites from the day. I think she'd have been 4 or 5 when she saw it. As it is terrifying for a kid like that. And and it works on that level of a thrilling adventure show for kids.
Yes.
But it equally works on that season 7 level of the extra layers in there. It's almost like a season 7 story of the Master on that front, because there is a tragedy there. And Matt Hulk would never write a straight Doctor Who story, even in the Trenton era, early Trenton era, which is the height of monsters bad.
Yes.
He wrote the Faceless ones, which is monsters not bad, monsters being forced to act bad.
I mean, I think for all the shades of grey, he's really good at characters. One of my favourite characters in Doctor Who's in Devils, and it's Mr. Trenchard, the
You
the
that
poor deluded fool, and in lesser hands he'd be a poor deluded fool. But Clive Morton, one of his last roles before his death, he really knocks it out of the park as this flawed person who genuinely thinks he's doing his best for his country.
Oh yeah, and I think I'll quote this very often, but the scene I adore it, and I think it might have been an improvised one in there, where he's in his office and he's just he's been talking about the golf tournaments.
Yeah.
He's cutting away to his golf, and the doctor knocks on the door. Go away, I'm busy. It's like the doctor buys in anyway, and he carries on shamelessly, and that says in a little beautiful little business. It says so much about that class of British people. The colonial governor, or the type of people who rise to high office these days, shall we say? Still, it's that kind of. They're not really that good. They're just trying to keep them out of people's way and keep them busy. But it's glorious, and it's almost heartbreaking. I know it's only a novelization, but the Doctor taking the safety catch off his gun again, the character touches on that. It's perfect with what we've got on screen. It is really one of my favorite Pertwee stories.
I
To be here.
I do love how when Trenchard's dead and the Navy chaps, like, how could he have done this? The Doctor still takes time out to reassure him that his friend hadn't turned traitor. He'd actually been manipulated by someone who, who had turned his best intentions on their head. It's that
Yeah,
bit.
kindness is there, isn't it? The Doctor's kindness.
Yeah, but he's the cliffhanger when the Sea Devil comes out to sea.
Yes.
He finds out what they've been communicating or dealing with, and he realizes that the Master's communicating with them. And there's a bit where the Master brushes him off, and you can see in Clive Morton's face. Not this isn't scripted. You just see it in his performance that Clive Morton, through Trenchard, realizes that he has been set up as a fall guy. That everything he's been working on is a complete con, and you can see it in his face. And even despite that, when the Sea Devils are breaking in, one of the first things he does is tell the young guy to get out the castle, save his life. But the other thing he does is he goes down to try and save the Master, because even though he knows the Master has betrayed him, it is his job to look after his prisoner. So he's going to do it, even though,
Duty.
you know, there's so much to love about the portrayal of that character. And it's just one small part of an excellent tapestry.
So I mean, I know as people despair. I love the sword fight. I mean, the Doctor stopping in the middle for a sandwich is just well, it's perfect, perfectly.
I mean, I like that. I love the clangers.
Oh, it's glorious, isn't it? You know,
The
so good that they had to redo it in 2006.
work as
So,
well in 2007. But,
so yeah,
just the way that he makes a joke about it and it brushes him off. He's like, and then you see him so frustrated. He's like, he wishes he had the Doctor and Joe there to laugh at his bad jokes right at
yes.
that moment. But then he's got Trenchard who's got no imagination. Oh, it's it is classic.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the Pertwee era, right at the halfway point. And it's I just have a look at that. It's just such a it's a well produced. If you're going to say anything that is kind of for me the definitive Pertwee story, it's got elements of that first season in it, and it's got I know it hasn't got the unit family in it, but it's got Pertwee and Manning absolutely at their peak of the relationship. You know, she's quite self-sufficient for a lot of this, and it's just the quintessential, I would say, absolute quintessential Pertwee.
It's really quite well done, and I mean, it's the Doctor Who of my childhood. What else could I?
The 90s, yes, Pertwee, the second Pertwee era.
Never off TV.